recording. Fabulous. So welcome everybody to hopefully you're in the right place. This is an introduction to regenerative businesses and organizations. We cover regenerative leadership because really that, everything's linked up in the regenerative approach. Everything's connected, and also it's an approach for every type of business or organization. So whether you are an employee or a leader, an owner, whether it's a private business or a community social enterprise or a not-for-profit, all of these regenerative principles and practices apply to every type of business. So, we use the term business in a very loose term. We often use the word organization, or it might be enterprise, or it might be leadership, but essentially we're talking about the same thing. So welcome to people that are still arriving. Do feel free to say who you are, introduce yourselves in the chat and where you're from. I know we've got people signed up from all around the world, so that is fantastic. Let's just share my screen and then just do some introductions so that you know why you're here and who we are. This is all about creating regenerative businesses and organization. It's all about making an impact. So that can be any kind of impact, social, environmental, etc. But we're aiming this at people who have some kind of like purpose focus in their business or organization. Okay, so let's introduce ourselves. My name's Sarah Spencer. I am a regenerative trainer and mentor. I'm also the author of the book Think Like a Tree, The Natural Principles Guide to Life. I've got a very, very varied background, which you can read on the website, which includes human rights law. It also includes being an entrepreneur with several businesses and also founding a community woodland social enterprise. And then I founded 6 years ago Think Like a Tree, which supports individuals with their personal development inspired by nature's principles, and then met JK through the Think Like a Tree facilitator network. JK came on board as a facilitator, and together we've created Think Like a Forest, which is our business sort of angle, support and training for businesses and organizations. So I'll let you introduce yourself, JK.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm JK. I'm over in Leeds, and similar to Sarah, it's sort of sunny but very cold as well here. I have my own company called Where the Mind Grows, and also JK Change Worker Coach out in nature and online. And as Sarah mentioned, we discovered each other when I actually Googled what can help me think like a tree, because I was already doing eco-psychology and I wanted to look at some other opportunities for my own personal development. And Sarah was at the end of that Google search as well. So that's where our collaboration began. I work both with individuals and in workplaces as well. And that's where my focus on sort of health, well-being and purposeful being and being human has kind of collaborated with Sarah's approaches as well. So it's lovely to meet you all today.
Fabulous. So today's workshop, we've got an hour and a half together. So if you're in the UK, that means finishing at 2 o'clock. And so what we're going to explore in an interactive way is, what does regenerative mean in the context of leadership, business and organizations? We're going to be exploring some of the frameworks for regenerative organizations. And a lot of regenerative is all about shifting our way of thinking and our way of being. So we're going to be inviting you to be a curious collaborator in that, in terms of, being curious about what that means for how you might change the way that you view yourself, your business and the world. We're going to signpost you to lots and lots of additional free resources, and we're going to also talk about our organization programs, with also some offers if you stay till the end as well. So do hang on to listen to that. And also it may not be that the timing's right for you, but you may know somebody that you can signpost towards this really valuable work, which is going to benefit you as an individual. It's going to benefit your organization, and it's also going to benefit the world as well. So hopefully you're in the right place if you also want to make a difference in the world, and as well as within your business or organization. So that is regenerative is also, it's not an individual pursuit. It's all about getting together with others and then finding ways together that we can create this new regenerative world. So we're going to start with getting present, really, leaving behind the stresses of the rest of the day. So I'm going to hand over to JK for this bit.
Thank you, Sarah. So for those of you that are familiar with grounding, this will be a total comfort zone thing. It might be something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone as well, but we do encourage you to take part with this, because a lot has already happened in the day, no matter where you are in the world. And so what I'd invite you to do, if you want to, for this moment, you can turn your camera off if you'd rather do that. If you're happy to keep it on, you can do, but we just invite you to be present for this moment in time. So just begin to get yourself comfortable where you're seated or standing. You might like to close your eyes and just allow that moment of silence to land alongside you. And as you find this space, you may need to adjust your body as you remind yourself that you are a living biological being. You might want to take some deep breaths in and out, to be curious about where your breath is coming from. Hopefully you're all still breathing as you find this moment now. Just allow yourself to find that regulated breath, even and smooth. If you need to adjust your body and stretch out any tension that the day has brought to you so far, you can do. And we invite you to just find a favourite space in nature. Perhaps it's a space from childhood, a totally fictional place. Maybe it's somewhere that you visited this morning. Perhaps it's somewhere in your dreams that you've created for yourself. Just invite you to look around that space, to sense into it, to notice the feelings, the experience, the textures, maybe even the smell or sounds that you hear. In this place, experience it in your own way, and just notice a word that comes to mind as you imagine yourself here. And as you find that space, take a lovely deep breath back in and then out. If you need to do any shimmy or shake or move, just to bring yourself back to present day. When you're ready to open your eyes, you can join us, and we'd love to hear from you in the chat, the word that found you, if you feel comfortable to share it.
Thank you, JK. So this grounding has several different benefits, really. I mean, obviously, hopefully you felt some benefit around that stillness, or even just the grounding of putting your feet on the floor, but also there is a nature connection element to it as well, which is benefiting us, but it's also allowing us to be more connected with the rest of the living world. And there's a really strong element of that within regenerative practice, and we in particular at Think Like a Forest feel that having that nature connection element directly, rather than just in a theoretical context, is hugely important, and we make it a very big part of our work. Whether you come online or in person, you will be actually really encouraged to connect with the rest of the living world. Fabulous. So let's move on now.
So I'm going to take you through just another brief exercise now that we've landed in the place of the workshop. I'm going to, in your own way, invite you to imagine business in the future. The date is 2030, so not a million miles away from the time now. And I just want you to, whether that's visualizing or just thinking or sensing, imagining, think about what you would like business future to be like in 2030. So just take a moment for a minute. I'll invite you just to pause with that. And then we'll ask you to just add that into the chat. So what is your business future vision for 2030?
And what I would say as well is if you are watching a video on catch up, it's really, really tempting. And I've done it before, just to sit back and think, oh, I'm just a consumer of this video, not a participant in a workshop. But I really urge you to, to actually do this activity as well as just simply watching.
Just give people a few moments to begin contributing that into the chat for us, and we'll read a few aloud as well. Words
sustainable, like yes.
Oh,
reciprocity, we love that word, don't we?
I finally learned how to be able to say it out loud. Connection in sunshine. Oh, I love that, Beth.
Yeah, so imagine you've time traveled and everything is lovely. Businesses to be around solving the world's problems, not creating them. Wow. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. People are kinder. Yeah, kinder. Kindness is a part of working. Love it. More than human. Nice, Will. A larger ecology of connected, small, well-being focused organizations. That's beautiful as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then for those of you that haven't contributed, or those that want to add this point, I'd just like you and invite you to reflect on what you see in the business of the world that's happening at the moment. So perhaps how you would describe what you observe as business currently, as well. So we'll bring ourselves back to the now. So what's your current observation of business?
Oh, yeah, Will, yes.
I don't know how I describe that out loud.
I've not even seen that emoji before, but it's very good. Yeah. So if anybody can't see it, it's an angry face with lots of swear words, I think. Yes.
Possibly begins with F.
Yes. Shareholder gains driven by market wrong values. Yeah. Rent-seeking corporations.
So we can see a real difference between kind of our emotional connection with the future business that we want and perhaps the future, the current business that we're seeing now. And I think that was one of the reasons that Sarah and I have kind of been on this journey of creating Think Like a Forest, is because we know that we can contribute to the way, as business owners, that we can contribute to some of those changes as well. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. So I'm going to hand over back to Sarah. Thank you so much for your contributions as well.
Lovely. And I think one of the important things when we are when we're moving into regenerative ways is to actually be able to have that vision of the future. So some of you may have come across Rob Hopkins, founder of the Transition Network, the idea of time travel to a specific future date where everything that could possibly have gone right has worked out brilliantly. So do tap into that for yourself and your business, the idea of actually having that vision of what that future looks like. And the interesting thing is that the further ahead we go, the more everybody has in common, really, of what we all want. So it just seems more hopeful and motivating to then try and work towards that with other people as well. So what we're essentially talking about is shifting a whole paradigm. So a paradigm is basically a collective mindset or a collective worldview that informs everything that we do. It informs our actions and it informs our values. And so the collective worldviews obviously differ around the world, but essentially the worldview that is driving the destruction, the extraction of the world's resources and the world's people is a Western worldview that grew up. I mean, the history of this is we do cover in our fundamentals program, but I've done a lot of research, and there's somebody called Jeremy Lent who I'd really advise you to check out, about the history of how did we get to this situation. And you could say that it started 10,000 years ago approximately with the advent of agriculture, and then it accelerated through the scientific revolution. And essentially the mindsets that we've got here now can be summed up by this reductive machine logic where, you know, everything's organized in hierarchies and broken down into individual parts, as opposed to what we see in the rest of the living world and we saw prior to these human changes, is this living systems logic where everything's interconnected. And, you know, it can look quite messy, and that's something that we have to start stepping into when we start looking at regenerative businesses in a regenerative way. And so I just want to signpost to Laura Storm and Giles Hutchins, Regenerative Leadership. These diagrams are taken from them, but excellent book. And Giles has written another book as well. And essentially what we're talking about is a paradigm of separation that we're living in now. And what we want to be doing is moving to a paradigm of reconnection. So this separation takes various different forms. It's a separation of humans and nature, separation of masculine and feminine, and that might be a separation between men and women, but it's also very often the separation and the valuing of the traits and characteristics that are seen as masculine over those ones that are seen as feminine. There's a separation between the inner and outer world. So, you know, the separation of brain and body is one really good example, with like Descartes' I think, therefore I am, which was, you know, kind of really just almost just reduced us to that thinking part of our brain. And obviously a lot of people are now rediscovering through practices like mindfulness, forest bathing, this idea of embodying. We need to be in our bodies to be connected, to be whole people, and so that's part of that reconnection process. And then there's the left brain and right brain separation as well. So there's all these stories of separation that we're trying to reunite in this much more reconnected way. So these paradigms, these collective worldviews, show up as different mindsets within businesses and organizations. And this is a piece of work that I've done after studying mindsets with various different people and applying it to and obviously working with businesses and seeing the kind of issues that are showing up. So on the left hand side, we've got these 5 mindsets: the efficiency mindset, the problem solving mindset, the reactive mindset, the creator mindset, and the do good mindset. So on the face of it, you might think, okay, you know, they're great, but they come from this same story of separation and of dominance of humans over either other humans and also over nature. So even when charities, for example, adopt mindsets of doing good, it's almost always with the idea that it's a human decision. It's humans who are superior to nature and are just rather than being connected and working with. So these can show up in lots of different ways in your organization. And so if you want to dig into that further, then you can do the link there is team quiz on the Think Like a Tree website, which you can actually answer some questions and then see, just explore. And obviously, you know, we're looking at these things. Usually it's more than one of these that's showing up in your business and organization, but we give you a huge amount of resources once you've done the quiz to actually see all of the mindsets. So really just try and open up some questions in you, really, to think, okay, so how's that showing up in my business or organization? So essentially the ones on the left are part of this mechanistic reductionist mindset. And then what we're trying to do is shift our business mindsets to this regenerative mindset, this mindset of creating life. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about, well, what is that? So it means, regenerative means, there is no one definition of regenerative business or regenerative leadership, but usually it has various all the different elements from the different practitioners have certain things in common. So it means learning from the rules that allow all living beings to thrive, such as healthy growth, adaptability, resilience, living with purpose, valuing diversity, recycling energy and materials, and being good ancestors. And in short, regenerative practitioners create life, and they also create conditions conducive for life to thrive. And of course, that means life in the broadest possible context, and it means life as in biodiversity of non-human living beings, but it also means for people to thrive as well. So the really great thing is when we move towards regenerative practices in our businesses, our organizations, and our societies, then humans benefit as well as non-human beings, i.e. nature, benefiting. And we use nature in Think Like a Tree and Think Like a Forest with two different definitions. There is our fundamental belief is that we as humans are nature. So there's that element of, you know, we are part of nature. But sometimes just for practical purposes, we use the term nature as non-human living beings as well, because that, I mean, that's actually the dictionary definition. And it also helps us to be remembering that we need to bring non-human living beings into everything that we do in our decision making in our lives and our organizations. So regenerative businesses and organizations see nature as an expert and a teacher. So Janine Benyus, founder of Biomimicry, talks about being, as humans, being apprentices of nature's 3.8 billion years of success, of research and development. So obviously that's putting us in quite a different place that we've been in over the last 500 years or more, where we're superior. So we suddenly, you know, we're suddenly apprentices of nature. So there's a very sort of humbling element to that shift. And regenerative businesses see your organization or team as an ecosystem. So just not a set of separate elements, but as this ecosystem approach. And one thing that's really important to flag up is that becoming a regenerative business is not something that you can do as a tick box activity. It involves a transformation, and you're constant. It's as much about the questions that you ask as about the answers and decisions that you come up with. So we're transforming the regenerative doing, so what we do in our businesses and organizations, but we're very much also thinking about how are we being, both as individuals, whether that be leaders or team members, or the within the organization as well. So it is a transformation, it's a journey, and that's one reason why we wanted to develop the programs that we've brought to the world, so that leaders, team members and whole organizations can come and experience that transformation alongside us as leaders and trainers and mentors, and also alongside other regenerators, because you do learn a huge amount from other people that are on this journey as well. Oh, I've gone too far. There we are. So what we want to do now is invite you to step into this place and get a bit curious about where you are in this journey, if you like. So how aligned with life do you feel? So here's some quotes that we've heard over the years that we've been working with businesses and individuals. So things like, you know, I feel my business is ethical, but my personal relationships aren't always compassionate. So often there's this sort of discomfort that maybe one area of your life might be aligned with these principles, these regenerative ideas, but maybe others aren't, and that is super common. So it might be, I feel anxious about my child's future, but our lifestyle has been reliant on me working for a big corporation that contributes to the problems. Again, very really common. My heart and my values are all about nature, but my work leads me to be in constant overwhelm. Or, you know, I've been taking my lunch breaks to create a small garden at work, and I feel more connected to nature and my work. Or in my leisure time, I feel calm when walking in nature, but at work, I don't even get a break to go to the toilet. So we work with a lot of people from the NHS. We've heard that many times. So, you know, the NHS doing really great work in one sense, and then the people in the working there often don't feel aligned with that sort of life creating element of health. So we're going to put you into some breakout rooms. If you're watching on catch up, please do this activity as well. And so ask yourself the question, you know, how do you explore with the people in your group? How do you feel aligned with life? And also dig into how that's showing up. So again, try to have that embodied approach of, you know, maybe it showing up as an anxiety in your stomach or a tension in your shoulders. So try and, you know, dig into that whole being approach to this question. Are you ready with some breakout rooms, JK? She's nodding. That's fabulous.
I certainly am. So you're going to go into an 8-minute breakout room. It'll have a 30-minute countdown for those who need to wrap up conversations, and then you'll come back and we will invite a few of you just to share. So obviously only share if you feel comfortable to do so, and I would just guide that you don't share other people's feedback without permission of that as well when you do feedback. So the rooms are opening now. You'll go into a group of between 3 and 4 people, so you'll get to actually have some human connection as well. So we'll see you in 8 minutes.
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. That's okay.
So we're going to invite you to feedback. We'll just hear a little bit of feedback, maybe one from each group, on anything that came up. Obviously just taking note of not sharing other people's stuff if you've not had permission to do so as well. But anyone, a couple of people who would like to contribute, what came up for you in terms of that big question, are you aligned with life?
Getting there. I would, my personal experience, middling.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jordan. I like that one. There's a few people noddling their heads there.
Yeah, we'll go with that one, noddling.
Noddling, yeah.
Created a whole new word.
That's an epic. Noddling. Epic.
Total slip of the mouth there, but we'll keep that one, I think. Thank you. Janet, did you want to contribute, or Wendy?
I can. I think what was interesting to me is that there's very different perspectives. So a lot of the people that we spoke to on the group come from, I want to say, sort of the personal or small charitable organization environment. And I was explaining that I come from a big corporate environment, but the really encouraging thing is that I'm coming from a role of having been appointed as ESG secretary to ensure that our corporate social responsibility initiatives really have a champion. And so for me, although we're not necessarily quite aligned there yet, we might be trying to find out exactly what it is we want to align with or identify with. To me, the encouraging thing is that there's actually quite a drive to get there.
Lovely, thank you.
Can I ask Janet, what's an ESG? You meant you were in the group and then we lost her just as she was in full flow. What's an ESG?
It's Environmental Social Governance Secretary. So it's a triangle. Everything's interconnected. The environment, the social aspects, and the governance aspects. Do we ensure that our business operates ethically? In other words, we don't do business with companies who might encourage child labor, or we don't do business with companies who do not have a decent code of ethics or code of conduct. And then on the environmental side, do we have goals to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions? Do we ensure that the suppliers we work with are also reducing their? So that's essentially the ESG triangle.
Fabulous, thank you. Roger, you were hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, it's very much wanting to go in this direction, but also at the same time having to recognise we're in a world where, an awful lot of what we do, and this is as what Janet was talking about, a small NGO, is influenced by the environment we're in, and the environment is very competitive. We've got to bid for funds, we've got to, and this sort of stuff. And so it's how we balance the sort of sustainability of what we're doing in a world that is not designed for regenerative practices with a desire to be more regenerative.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is all part of, bringing this together, because, even when you've got, what regenerative is and you want to live it, and we are in that reality of living in a world that isn't regenerative. So it is, and that's one reason why we're really passionate about bringing people together for programs, and more widely as well, because this is going to be a collective endeavor to try and bring this to try and change the whole environment, rather than just changing individual things within individual organizations, which is obviously perhaps more the sustainability approach. So yes, absolutely, that is a huge part of what we're doing with Think Like a Forest, and also we invite every potential regenerative organization and practitioner to step into.
We've got time for just one more, Will, and I can see you raise your hand, so if you want to go ahead.
Just briefly, I was with Lisa and Louisa and Gemma, who was driving. It builds really on what Roger said around maybe a difference between theory and practice, that we're everyone in our group felt that we're so busy. We're driven by this busyness that's really accelerated over the last 50 years or so. I mean, maybe 50 years ago, some people felt it was already there, but I think it really has increased, and there's so much more coming in. And we couldn't explore it very far, but how much it's maybe reflections on those external pressures almost as excuses. Like, we didn't get into that enough, perhaps, but there's all this. We were talking about stuff on the outside, and the need to maybe be courageous in that. And it's so hard when we're immersed in these communities, whether a work community or a social community, where there isn't that. It's in pockets, but it's only in pockets. So I think supporting what you're saying about building community, building a forest rather than being individual trees.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to move on now to start talking about the frameworks that we use within our programs within regenerative, which have got roots in lots of different disciplines, that essentially that nature inspired guidance is hugely helpful for things like busyness, because we realize that we are so out of alignment with how other ecosystems work in terms of periods of ebb and flow and pause and energy, that actually when we when we step into that place of learning from living systems, then we have some really great models, some really great guides out there, even just going for a walk in the forest. So I'm going to hand over to JK now. Let me change the spotlight and also share my screen again, hopefully. So as I was saying, then there is no one size fits all approach. It's not a tick box endeavor for this regenerative journey. And so we've developed this concept of a regenerative backpack. So essentially you choose what you put in your backpack. We can suggest things, and instead of these tick box one size fits all or even best practice approaches, what we need are frameworks, tools, resources and support, which is really, really helpful. So we're just going to explore in more depth two of the frameworks that our main frameworks that we use within the fundamentals and adventure programs with Think Like a Forest. So JK, over to you for the 12 strands.
Thank you, Sarah. So I think this is what Sarah and I both kind of found, is that these frameworks, which we were seeing and observing in our nature connected kind of out there work and the living systems work, were just such a good navigation tool, a compass in which we can all explore kind of how to create a regenerative life, a regenerative business and organisation for ourselves and our community as well. So we created these 12 strands, and we're going to kind of delve a little bit deeper into two of those today as well. Now I won't go through all of them, but I will highlight to you that we've already encouraged you to be observant in some elements. So we invited you to ground and sense in and observe your inner ecosystem. And then we also thought about creating life and being purposeful for the future, like what was the future of business as well. And these different resources are part of the fundamentals, so that they allow you to guide your own way, to navigate your own way through your regenerative business exploration as well. So throughout the fundamentals course, we help you and support you with a range of resources that will support the different elements of these strands, beginning to become almost like a diagnostic tool for you that's going to support you to understand like where there is abundance in the elements of your work already, or perhaps the ones that have potential or need support and nurturing as well. So within the platform, we have a range of different resources that sit and align under these, which are also framed about something around something called our 6 systems dimensions framework as well. So I'm going to ask Sarah just to switch us through to the next.
Can I just jump in there, JK, because I just want to give a bit of background about where, you know, if people are curious, because about where how we brought together these 12 strands, really, you know, so JK and I have both trained in regenerative leadership in various different places around the world, and also my background, I trained in permaculture and then did a diploma in applied permaculture design. So I know there's some permaculturists in the room, so you'll recognize some of these from permaculture. They've come from biomimicry, they've come from systems thinking, from regenerative economics, and basically, as you can imagine, I wrote a book called Think Like a Tree, The Natural Principles Guide to Life. I do know quite a lot about nature's principles and these regenerative disciplines, so that's where these have come from. They've got a eclectic background, but essentially this is what I saw as being a comprehensive set of principles, effectively, in a language that would be familiar to businesses and organizations as well. So there is certain sort of subsections of all of these. There's more detail once we dig into them, but essentially just to give some context about where they came from. And here we are, our six systems dimensions.
Now, one of the things, and I think it actually came up before about this kind of siloed, separate working, the way that we see things very much in a segmented way, and they're kind of isolated from each other. And that in itself is part of that extractive approach that has made business, some of the descriptions that you all kind of shared, and particularly that emoji that someone shared before, you know, in terms of how things are. And so we realized that anything that we were going to support people to explore when it comes to regenerative is to understand this interconnectedness between everything of ourselves right up to the biosphere, you know, the whole planet kind of system as well. So through both the program and through your own experience of exploring like the regenerative fundamentals and things like that, there is an opportunity to think about how these interconnect. So we begin always with self, and as I've mentioned, that inner and outer ecosystem of self. So learning about like being and doing within a regenerative way. Then we pan out to a team. Now, a team for you might be your collaborators, it might be a whole team or a number of different teams, and that spans out then to the organization as its own ecosystem as well. Beyond that, we think about the physical workplace, or perhaps you're working in or with the land as well. And beyond that, the wider ecosystem and how that is interconnected. And as I've already mentioned, you know, beginning to see this whole systems approach to life and creating life, and thinking about the decisions that we make in our business. Do you have some sort of impact on that wider biospheric kind of perspective? And also, as some of you have mentioned before, you know, about like what's going on in the world is very much influencing ourselves and our organizations as well. So how can we align those to a creating life approach, to a regenerative approach as well? So this is a tool that we invite people to kind of explore as part of fundamentals. It becomes its own living system, I think, actually would be the way that I would say it, Sarah, is that you learn to switch on and realize that in making choices or directions or using resources in one element, that naturally they begin to interconnect. And we were just talking about this in the break, actually, we have a platform called One Planet that is part of the program resources, and Sarah and I were just talking about that interconnectedness of different things, of how a whole system can kind of talk and interact with each other as well. So I think, Sarah, you're going to dive down in a moment.
I am, yes. Yeah. So, you know, one of the things about these 6 systems dimensions is that when we have a framework like this, it means that we're kind of not missing bits, because what our experiences of doing lots of regenerative practices is sometimes you can be tempted to really focus down on yourself and the personal development element of it, and that's great and it's really necessary, and that's, you know, bringing forward the leadership capacity, etc. And then the biosphere might have been forgotten, or maybe you're doing some ESG work or environmental sustainability work and you're concentrating on the carbon, but you're forgetting about the people implications of that. So this framework just allows you to kind of not miss things, and to see, like JK says, that everything is an interconnected system, because obviously these are, you know, kind of unnatural boundaries that we've put in place. They're just for the purposes of really allowing you to ask the right questions. So that's essentially what we support you to do. We give a huge amount of resources, tools, activities, suggestions, but the starting point is always like, what questions are we asking ourselves? So if we dig into this cycling and zero waste strand, then we start by looking at it and observing it in a living system. So I'd really urge you after this to head out into whatever is your nearby nature. It doesn't have to be into the wilderness, but just to see, you know, be curious about how nature operates with regard to waste. One of my oft quoted phrases is, there is no bin day in the forest. So, you know, nature, what is waste for one organism becomes food and resources for another. So we see this cycling. But we might think of that in terms of recycling, obviously, but let's have a look at it in a much more holistic way, looking at this 6 systems dimension framework. So again, thinking about the cycling and zero waste strand, with regard to ourselves as a leader or team member, we might be thinking about old habits that I can let go of and recycle. And what am I holding on to that I need to let go of? And we can think about how nature kind of naturally cycles through the seasons as well, and thinking about sometimes if we've created a project and we've put a lot of effort into it, we can feel really personally invested, and it's difficult to let go of that, even though maybe circumstances have changed and it's no longer relevant. But actually, when we learn from living systems, we can see that none of that is wasted anyway. So it will just get recycled. That knowledge and experience will get recycled into something else. So it makes it much easier to let go. Moving on to the team systems dimensions, we might be thinking about changing cultures and processes that are no longer serving us. Can we learn from our experiences to bring in healthier ways, design in healthier ways of working for our team? And then looking at things like blame or shame and how this can all become any supposed failures are feeding into the cycling and the resources for the future. And looking at energy, of course, cycling of energy, what can we bring in to avoid team burnout, which is essentially a huge source of a loss of energy from a system, which of course nature doesn't really like that. Every time things are recycled, there is a certain energy loss, but essentially what we're trying to do is keep that energy in the system. In the organizational systems dimension, we might be looking at how can we transition to a circular economy with our products. And a case study we have here is Toast Clothing. So they've looked really into what materials they're using for their clothing, their supply chain, but they've gone one stage further for that, and actually thinking about when the clothing leaves their factory, their shop, and is worn by the customers, how can that not be the end of the line? How can they come back into Toast and be mended and resold and recycled and broken down and made into something new? So it's much more of a whole system approach than just that idea of looking at sustainable materials. Moving out further, so if you've got in your workplace, or if you've got a land-based project, how can waste from one area become food from another? So shared healthy eating. So we do that in our Think Like a Tree courses. I've just done a facilitator program for the last 3 days, and we grow food either from the local market garden or from here at my small holding, and we're eating together. So that means that there's less waste, and then that all gets composted, and then that feeds the garden up at Whistlewood where we held our course. So we're thinking about that rather than just buying in or asking people to bring a packed lunch. We're looking at that whole system approach. Then in the wider ecosystem, then there's this great case study of Kalundborg in Denmark, which is an industrial park, and what they've done is there's actually 25 different resource streams being shared. So the waste from one industry is being used as fuel or food or resources for another, and this is actually transforming not just the environmental impact, but also the financial landscape as well, because of course all those resources have value. So we can, that's about clever design, in that case about industry being sited in one area, so that the different resources and elements can move between them quite easily. And then finally, moving out to the biosphere, products and procurement. How can you transition to non-toxic resources and materials? Thinking about water cycling, and also could rainwater be captured and reused? So we're looking at this big picture right from yourself right through to the biosphere, thinking about all the ways that energy, water, nutrients, resources, materials can be cycled in similar ways to ecosystems. And then we might also have to think about, phasing out. I mean, we are where we are, and there is that old phrase, isn't there, if I wanted to go here, if I wanted to go there, I wouldn't start from here. But the fact is, we are where we are. So we, by industries working together, we can think about lobbying government, etc., and phasing out these toxic materials. So, taking that big picture approach. So hopefully that's sort of given you an idea for how we use our strands and our systems dimensions. So we're going to give you an opportunity to explore that for yourselves now by going back in your breakout rooms. And what we'd like you to explore in your breakout rooms is this resilience strand. So what is resilience? So we see, we see nature's resilient in many, many different ways. Everything from when a tree is cut down or coppiced, it can regrow, and that regrowth is stronger. We might see trees bending with the wind. We see that trees that are in community are healthier and stronger than those that are alone. But essentially, resilience is about the ability to bounce back after shocks. So think about maybe a forest fire or a flood or something like that, then nature will bounce back. But more than that, it is also about taking advantage of opportunities that change brings. So when we shift that focus and be inspired by living systems, we can actually think, okay, these changes that are happening in the world of business, they're happening really rapidly at the moment. What are the opportunities contained within them? And so we've got this 3.8 billion years of resilience to draw on, which we'd like you to sort of think about when you go into your breakout rooms. So hopefully you've kind of got an idea of what these 6 systems dimensions are. So when, you're not going to have a huge amount of time in your breakout rooms. I think it's another 8 minutes, is it, JK?
I dropped it to 6.
6 minutes, yeah. So just try and think of, not just resilience in your workplace maybe, but also maybe some personal things as well. So think about the systems dimensions, but just go with a chat about how you can learn from this strand of resilience for your business or organization.
And I've dropped some notes into the chat as well, if anyone wants to copy those before you go into the room. So we're going to open it now. You get 6 minutes of conversation and a 30-second countdown as well. So 6.5 minutes. I'm being extra generous. So you're going to bob back into your rooms now to talk about resilience.
Fabulous. So sorry, bear with me. Okay, so we talked about this idea of a regenerative backpack, and really it is up to you to choose what you put in your backpack. And so we offer we have got a lot of free resources for you. And we do tend to be regenerative squirrels, don't we? We sort of gather things from lots and lots of different places and, then present them to you, think about them, adapt them, rewrite them, and that is what the process of regenerative is all about. And like I say, we've done a lot of regenerative studies and very practical embodied stuff as well. So we bring that into our work. So we do have a weekly regenerative business newsletter, which I think now you probably will all be signed up to, but, please don't unsubscribe because you'll miss out on that newsletter. That is absolutely packed with everything from book reviews to podcast recommendations to a weekly activity to do with your team, networks, all sorts of stuff in every single edition. We are taking a month off for December, so look out for that again. You probably get one tomorrow, but then there won't be another one till January. There is that quiz that we mentioned earlier on in the session, the mindset quiz, but it does have a lot of follow-up resources as well, including a free workbook about the first steps to getting started in your regenerative journey. And there is also a 12 strands workbook as well that you can access via the website, that gives a bit more insight into those 12 strands that we talked about. And then we do this kind of workshop for conferences and festivals and that kind of thing. So if you are involved in a podcast or, you know, any events, then we're very happy to share this kind of workshop or another in those kind of events. So you can access all of those via thinklikeatree.co.uk/links. So we want to talk about the regenerative programs that we have, the paid programs. So we've got a lot of free resources, and then of course we have the very in-depth programs that you can come on. So the Regenerative Organization Fundamentals, it deals with those frameworks and brings them to you, but in a really, really practical way. So it's covering everything from regenerative leadership, team culture and well-being, your healthy organizational growth, collaborative networks, and obviously you know, the looking at the health of the planet as well. And it's all inspired by nature's success, but with very practical, obviously, you know, it is very much aimed at a business and organization audience. Our first cohort started in October, and we have everybody signed up, from solo coaches, we have growing land-based businesses, we have small businesses, and then we have large multinational corporates. So we, you know, we do practice that value diversity, natural principles, so everybody can learn from each other, whatever type of organization that you are part of. And the practicalities of it is that you can join at any time, and that you access a huge amount of modules and learning, and you access the community, which is called the Inspired by Nature Network. And then what you do is you join the next round of live sessions. So our next round of live sessions starts on the 5th of March. But that gives you plenty of time to also pay in installments if you want to. So we're giving people plenty of notice, so that if you want to sign up today and get access to all those modules, then you're very welcome to do that. If you want to pay us in installments and then get access in February or March, that also will work. So as part of it, you get 12 hours of group coaching. So you're really learning from each other and having that much more sort of live embodied approach, albeit online via Zoom. You've got myself and JK both in the platform and in the live sessions. You've got the cohort of peers, and it's been so rich to see the shared learning that's happening going on. The campfire sessions are basically peer support sessions. You've got that community platform, which will also be eventually opening out to a much wider audience as well. That will be growing, and lots of online modules, which are recorded videos, and then lots and lots of activities. Now, on the right hand side, you can see our One Planet tech platform. So you will get access to One Planet to create an action plan where you will map all your actions onto this very intuitive mind map, which then creates reports. So, you know, we want to make sure that you're capturing all of your learning in a really practical way, so that even if it's, you know, whether it's something that you want to change within yourself as a leader, or right through to, you know, creating a new network, or changing a tech thing, whatever it is, you can capture it using this this platform, this technology. And that's been really, really valuable. And this ecosystem approach is much more aligned with how our brain works, rather than this very linear report-based approach that we might see in traditionally in business. And then there is also the option to continue that after the end of the course and then connect with other organisations. So, for example, in the UK, I think all of the national parks are now on this. Many local governments are on this, as well as private businesses and community businesses. So it's much more than just an action plan. You can connect into a community through it as well. So you're joining fellow leaders, coaches and change makers, and as I say, the focus is regenerative organizations, business leadership, but of any type. And also we have got people joining us from around the world as well. And our offer today for you is that if you would like to ask any questions or dig in, explore how this might work for your particular circumstances, your particular business or organization, then we're offering a free 30-minute consultation one-to-one with JK, or you could request myself, but at the moment the tech's set up for JK. And also you can pay in 3 installments, so we've got that option for you. And that in even more generous style, we are offering £100 off if you book before the 4th of January as well. So that will also include the pay in installments option, as long as you're paid up. And if you want to start the live sessions on the 5th of March, as long as you're paid up by then you can pay in installments as well. So we've got that code for early bird as well. We do have 2 programs. So we have the fundamentals, which is usually for individual leaders or team members. You can bring, say you've got a couple of people who want to come on. That's what's happening at the moment with several organizations, maybe 2 or 3 people coming on the fundamentals program. But if you have a whole organization that you would like to go through this regenerative journey, then we offer what's called our adventure. So you get access to everything in fundamentals, and instead of joining those live Zoom sessions, then you do whole team or whole organization sessions with us, and that can be online or online and in person, as you can see from these photos. So that's an option if you've got a whole organization that you want to have access to all of this wisdom. It allows us to be much more bespoke with you for the specific circumstances that you particularly want to work on with your team. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll stop sharing and I will stop the recording as well, and we'll take any questions as well.